Believe it or not, for the first 8 months in the business, I did 0 transactions. And then it all just clicked randomly from that 8-month mark to the end of the year. I actually ended up doing 27 sales. I had Vulcan7. That was my main dialer. I was getting expired. I was getting enforced out by owners. I was doing circle prospecting. I had pretty much everything. Now it was like I'm going heavy into the listing side. I had an appointment lined up. Then after that, I would do all my CMA preps. After my CMA preps, go on my afternoon appointments. I had at that time was a 3 and a 6 o'clock slot, and then I'd be home, and then I just rinse and repeat and do that all over again.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Vulcan7 Coaches and Mentors, where we bring you some of the best in the industry to share with you their tips and strategies so that you can implement them in your business immediately. So make sure that you have a pen and paper ready, because today's guest, with him, we're going to be talking about prospecting, dialogues, scripts, and so much more. So with that being said, Rich Adamski, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So for everyone that's watching that maybe is not too familiar with you, just go ahead and share with us a little bit about your background.
So, I'll do the brief version. I got into real estate 14, 15 years ago now. Started on a team like everybody else. Did rentals, buyers. Now I'm solely just on the list side and run a small team. Within that career so far, I've sold over well over 1,000 homes. My partner and I also now run a prospecting group that we prospect all day with all agents around the country. We come in there, and between him and I, we have over $1 billion in sales. So we bring you the proven strategies and techniques, not just simply what we think works and what we read somewhere. So that's all in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So, a question that I like to ask all my guests is, what did you do before you got into real estate, or what made you get into this business? Because people come from all walks of life. Some of them have had a previous career and this was a complete change. So what did that look like for you?
So I graduated college, did the whole college route. As soon as I graduated, I had a job. I used to work as a financial analyst. That was very short-lived. It lasted about a year and a half. And then right after that, I worked on Wall Street in New York City. And that lasted about a year. And then my whole engagement after college was about 2.5, 3 years. And then right after that, I decided to get into real estate. So, I realized early on, corporate America is just not for me. Being under a microscope wasn't for me. Having a manager, and I was, as crazy as it might sound, wasn't me. Like, yes, we have managers now, but just having somebody say you have to do this by this time, it wasn't like a structured way I wanted to be and live my life. And got into real estate. I stumbled upon it, ironically. Walking outside of my house, my neighbor was putting their house up for sale. Real estate agent was putting the sign in the ground. He was the broker of the company. I don't know what made him talk to me, but he started talking to me. And then he said, "Hey, kid," I was 23 at that time. He said, "If you ever want to make real money, here's my business card, call me." And 6 months later, I called him, ironically.
So when you did get started and you called him, what was that first year for you like? Was there prospecting involved, like the learning curve? What was that like?
So, one thing I would tell anybody out there, if they don't have a mentor or they don't have a coach, you really should get that very early on. I did not have any of that, no mentor, no coach. So I kind of just threw myself into the fire. I was doing open houses. I was calling leads. I was, getting, whatever I can get my hands on. And believe it or not, for the first 8 months in the business, I did 0 transactions. I think it was like 2 or 3 rentals, which unfortunately that was not paying the bills, but I don't call a transaction, a rental a transaction. And then I would just, I was faced where I was like, okay, what am I going to do here? I was looking at my bank account. I didn't have too much to pay my rent. And I think it came down to pay the rent or stay in real estate. I decided to stay in real estate. And then it all just clicked randomly one day. I decided to listen to the clients. I just started to kind of become more of like coaching. I was more of like on this YouTube kick at that time, just asking a lot of people within the office what to do. Still didn't get myself a coach. But from that 8 month mark to the end of the year, I actually ended up doing 27 sales, which was just all buyer side at that time. And then it just from there, I was like, all right, now I need a coach. So the second full year, technically, I got a coach. And then from there on, it just been year after year from there. It went from 40, it was, I think, 41, and then it was 67, and then it was 84, I believe. Then I hit the 90s, I think it was 96. And since then, I've been breaking 100 year after year.
That's so awesome to hear. And congrats on, all of the success that came in after those 8 months, because I'm pretty sure that we have listeners that feel like they might be in the same boat where nothing's going on, but they might hear you and see and be like, okay, well, if he did it, I know that there's a way for it to be done. And then you completely killed it the following year. So what did your structure look like in terms of like your schedule? What were you prospecting? I know you mentioned that after the 8 months, most of the transactions were buyers. So did you decide, okay, well, I want to work mostly listings, or can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I would say year two was all buyer sales. My buyer sales are all the way up until I was 6 years in the business, where I only focused on buyers. I was good at doing open houses. I was good at getting the activity from there. And then, we had Zillow where you used to be able to pay, and they actually called you direct. So I was getting a lot of buyer heavy transactions. And then I was getting buyers from people within the office that just they didn't want to be dealt with it. So I was paying referral fees. My broker was starting to give me buyers because they saw confidence in me. So fast track that is year two is or when I really understood just for myself was like, hey, listen, I was getting to the office at 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock, sometimes 12 o'clock. And I realized that you can't be doing that. Like if you really want to treat this as a true job, like if you're working a 9 to 5, you have to be in by 9 o'clock, and 9 o'clock is considered late. So I put myself onto a schedule. So once I started doing that, I was like, all right, I'm going to get to the office at X time. If I recall correctly, at that time was around 9 a.m., which was a big improvement for where I was coming from. And then slowly I was like, all right, if I want to get time back and I want to leverage myself, what's the only way I can do? I can only work on listings. So then what I do is by this time, I think it was like 3 years, I had Vulcan7. That was my main dialer. I was getting expired. I was getting for sale by owners. I was doing circle prospecting. I had pretty much everything. Now it was like I'm going heavy into the listing side, and that's what I decided to do. I was like I ripped off a Band-Aid. As much as it hurt and pained me to not want to work with a buyer because I knew I can do it, I was like I want my freedom and I want my time back. And from that day on, which is now about 7, 8 years ago, is I did take a step back in production, but then it propelled me forward to be able to do what I wanted to do. So now I put myself on a schedule. Now I'm going to give you the schedule as when I'm more on the top producer side, where I'm starting to leverage. I was in the office by 6:50 in the morning. I was doing my affirmations. Before that, I was at the gym, so I was getting to the gym around 5 a.m., showering, going to the office, getting my affirmations in, getting my role plays in. By 8 a.m., I was on the phones from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. I was just strictly talking to strangers, outbound prospecting, expireds. I'm gonna say right now because I don't know if for rent by owner was a thing, but FSBOs, for rent by owners, circle prospecting, just listed, just sold. That's what I did. And then in the afternoon, I would stop at 12. I would eat from 12 o'clock to 12:30. At 12:30 to 1 o'clock, I would do all my follow-ups for everybody I had appointment lined up. Then after that, I would do all my CMA preps. After my CMA preps, go on my afternoon appointments. I had at that time was a 3 and a 6 o'clock slot, and then I'll be home, and then I just rinse and repeat and do that all over again.
That's awesome. And I know that you mentioned earlier that currently you and your partner have a prospecting group. You're still doing the
Yep.
prospecting. So what does that look like? I assume the schedule probably hasn't changed that much since what you just described. But what lead sources are you going after? What are you seeing currently in the market and with what you're training your agents on?
So yes, I am prospecting. My agents are prospecting. As this is recorded this minute, I hear in the bullpen people prospecting right now. So it is a real thing. At the end of the day, we teach that you need to be able to make outbound phone calls Look, does social media work? Absolutely. Do email campaigns work? Yes. Do text message campaigns work? Yes. But I was bred up that you pick up a phone, you have a conversation with somebody, because a lot of other ways things get misinterpreted, right? So you want to be able to put the best position for yourself to land an appointment for somebody to say yes to you for today or yes for you for another day, and then you be able to go on that actual appointment. So yeah, my schedule it is changed dramatically over the years, but there is still that prospect, and I'm still in the office at a decent time. I still am on the phones by 8 o'clock in the morning. We're calling the fresh expireds, the hot fresh expires that I want to talk to, the hot for sale by owners that I want to talk to, the hot for rent by owners that we want to talk to. Right after that, we rip into a quick 30 to 45 minute circle prospect, everybody after that. And then by 10 o'clock, from 10 to 11 a.m., it's strictly database. We talk to our sphere. We talk to everybody that we know, just doing our touch points where we got to do. And then from there at 11 a.m., I kind of start my day. Everything else I have to do, running our team meetings, being involved with our team, seeing what they have going on. And then my appointments are a little bit different now because, now it's more agent recruitment, it's more speaking to people, it's more operations, taking a look at the business. It's a little bit different now, but to keep in mind, I am still personally doing over 100 transactions a year, but it's all through my database now from everybody I cultivated over the years.
Mm-hmm. So I know you're on the Jersey Shore. I was recently talking to agents pretty much all across the country, and they're telling me in some places, there's low inventory, bidding wars. In other places, homes are taking over 100 days to sell. What is it currently like right now where you're at?
Yeah, so we have the metro market. So we have New York City, and New York City is still always coming over to New Jersey. So we're actually kind of last, whatever the United States is doing, North America, we're kind of last to kind of adapt to. So when everybody's having like slower markets, our market's still pumping. But at the end of the day, it's also to the individual agent. Like if you put the work in, you're going to see results, right? If you don't put the work in, you're not going to see results. But there are still pockets of our area that are trending under 3 days. And I kid you not, you still can list it on a Friday, get multiple offers over the weekend, and be doing highest and best. But then there are also pockets of areas where the days on market and the absorption rate is 45 days, 70 days. And you have to wait to that time period because guess what? It's not going to sell before that. And if it does, you price it extremely well. So we do have both a little bit, but like where I'm talking about, where it sits a little bit longer, it's more inland and it's more on, I'll use the word rural. But yeah, I mean, our market's still moving at a very, very fast pace. We're only averaging, I think, between 24 to 27 listings average on month, which is extremely low. And there is still buyer heavy versus listing heavy over here.
Okay, no, that's great to know. And it kind of brings me up to my next question, which is regarding dialogue. So obviously you mentioned in some places it's not homes are not going as fast. So what does the dialogue sound like? That way agents can take notes. If perhaps they have a seller that's saying, you know what, Rich, like I see homes selling in 3 days and you're telling me, it's been 2 weeks and we haven't gotten anything, like what's going on? Or at what point are price reductions even considered over there?
So for us, the way I train is when you take a listing, it's make sure that the seller has the exact expectation of what's going to happen, right? So we're prepping pure communication, and this is how we do our price reductions if we need to do it. It's pure communication. It's over communicate to the seller because a lot of times the seller is not going to give you what you're looking for if they feel like you're not doing your job, right? So the way we actually take that information is when we're on the listing appointment, we'll say, hey, listen, we want to list this at 1.3. And then the seller's like, well, my house is worth 1.4. And then if you go through a series of questions and the motivations at a high level and you as an agent decide to take that listing, well, we know that their motivation is so high that eventually if we just over communicate to them or we say, hey, listen, we're going to do an active coming soon. I know that's kind of changing with some people in their market. Our market, we still allowed to do that. We do an active coming soon, and I'll be like, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, when we list the property by, so today is February 26th, if we're listing on March 1st and we're doing a coming soon, If I only had 1 or 0 people reach out to me in this coming soon activity, we're going to give it only 7 days, and we're going to see what the activity like is. We're going to take a look on Zillow, on our social channels, all the marketing efforts we have. And if these numbers are low, we're going to have to do a quick price adjustment right away. And we actually put that in writing to them saying, listen, we're suggesting 1.3, you're at 1.4. Let's tell us what the market's going to say. But the way we also do that is we tell them everything we're doing. I'll make a quick 2-minute phone call. Hey, you know what? We just got ready. We're doing, the listings getting ready to go on the MLS. We're doing the descriptions right now. The pictures are done. This is done. That's done. Boom. Next day, hey, listen, it's now listed on the MLS. We're going to see what the activity is. My staff's going to reach out for feedback. I'm going to call you tomorrow from the first wave of showings. You're calling the next day. Hey, listen, in our pre-listing packet, if you remember what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be circle prospecting the area. So these are how many people I talk to. These are how many people that are potentially interested. This is how many people reach out to us through our effort. And then I'll wait like 2 or 3 days, and you make the next call. So like you're just providing so much value to them. And then by the time a week passes by, if you're like, listen, all right, the listing should have sold within the 7-day window. We're not there. We're going to give it one more weekend. If not, always ask for a price reduction greater than what you want. So if you're like, hey, listen, I want 1.3 and they're at 1.4, you should typically ask for probably like 1.25, because the worst that they can say is like, I'm not going to give you 1.25, but I'll give you 1.325. So you're in a better position than where you were the first time around. So kind of they always try to cut you in half. So I always ask for a little bit greater. Rule of thumb is what we try to do is around 10%, but you don't always get that. If somebody's going to say, listen, let's reduce it 5,000 or 10,000, then I'm just going to say, listen, let's hold off, because that's not going to change algorithms. That's not going to change anybody's going to want to go from there. But we kill it with many conversations.
That's awesome. I think everyone's going to have to rewind this whole entire piece that you just mentioned, because I think that is gold. And I'm glad that you're talking about communication, because sometimes, unfortunately, even when I'm calling expires and for sale by owners, they tell me that their last agent, they didn't hear from them. They kind of fell off the face of the earth. And it's better for agents to over communicate. A seller's not going to be like, stop calling or texting me, because they want to know what's going on and why they've hired you. So I'm really glad that you brought that up and kind of broke it down as to what you guys are doing. But as we wrap up, I know that you mentioned you have a prospecting group. How can agents get a hold of you, or what can you tell us about your coaching in case anybody does want to get involved?
Great. It's called Phone Wars. You can just search it in Facebook, join the group, and you can just see all the information that's on the page. There's people on there all day, every day on the active Zoom, and there's people that are always engaging, sending referrals. As far as the coaching goes, myself and my partner, we do coach people individually. So if you want to inquire a little bit more about that, just drop me a quick DM, or reach me on the Phone Wars, and we'll reach out to you. Myself or my partner, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's at Phone Warriors on Facebook. And if you want to go to phonewarszoom.com, that's how you get the information for the actual Zoom.
Awesome. All right, Rach. Well, thank you so much for hopping on here on the Vulcan7 Coaches and Mentors. And for everyone that's watching, we'll make sure to put all of his links in the description box below, and we'll see you all on the next one.